All right, we are live. Welcome to a brand new edition of Between the Links on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. And tonight we are live on the Loudmouth MMA YouTube page. My name is Mike Heck. I'm your host, and we are coming off a big weekend in combat sports with Tyson Fury's amazing performance against Deontay Wilder, the UFC in Auckland, New Zealand, with that banger of a main event between Dan Hooker and Paul Felder. We had two Bellator events. Even Submission Underground took place on Sunday. So there's lots to watch over the weekend, lots to discuss on the show this week as we get ready for the UFC's trip to Norfolk, Virginia this coming Saturday. We're going to add some elements to this week on Between the Links for those watching on the YouTube channel. I know we started a little bit later than we anticipated, but it is what it is. We'll get into all of that stuff in a moment. But first, let us introduce this illustrious panel. First, Mr. Keith Shelton is here. You know he's ready to go. How are you, Keith?
I'm excellent. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. We have Mr. Davidson Baker here, and there's this narrative that there's this feud between us, Davidson, and frankly, I have no idea where that comes from at all. How are you?
I don't know, but I think it's coming from somewhere. One of the guys that's looking like Peter Parker that's in this abyss right now.
Actually, I do know where that narrative comes from. It comes from John Franklin, who is filling in for our resident Adam Oates, Craig Allen, who ditched us for a church league hockey game. John, thank you for joining us. It always makes things quite a bit more interesting when you're on the panel, sir.
Mike, it was my understanding we were going to wear costumes. I must have missed an email. I'm going to take this thing off because it weighs 40 pounds and my legs are killing me. And I have a rematch clause in my contract, so if I lose because of it, I'll be back on Between the Links before you know it. There was no Loudmouth MMA recap show this week. I am contractually obligated based on the contract I signed with Kyle Steele to be on 2 shows a week. Here I am lawyered up if I have to contest this contract with Kyle, but I'm ready to roll.
Wow, what an introduction that was. And our special guest this week, as you can see, joining the panel for the first time, is part of a plethora of different websites covering the sport of mixed martial arts and other sports as well, including bjpen.com, mymmanews.com, and so many others. Cole Shelton is here. How are you, Cole?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Doing great. It's great to have you here. And for those who are somewhat familiar with the show, the rebuttal rule, as always, is in full effect. Gentlemen, you can invoke that clause once per show in the private chat you have here. And for those who are new to the show, the scoring is going to be based on a 10-point must system, just like in MMA. 10 points goes to the winner, 9 for everyone else. Now, for all you guys and gals who are going to end up watching this, this is where you come in. Hell, this is the first time we're doing this live, so we'll see where this goes. But if you are watching and you hear these answers, make sure you type in the old chat here who you think should get the 10 points with these questions. Ultimately, I'm trying to control this chaos, so I have the final say, but just respond with who you think won. Just throw out a first name in there. You can throw in a how and a why as well if you'd like, and we'll start eliminating these guys after 4 questions until we get to the finals. But let's get right into this thing. Let's talk about the terrific main event between Dan Hooker and Paul Felder on Saturday in Auckland, New Zealand. It was arguably the best fight of the year so far in the UFC, and in the end, after a 25-minute war, Dan Hooker gets the nod via split decision. It was a super close fight. It wasn't a robbery. That's a word we're going to be diving into later on in the show. But Keith Shelton, you're up first this week. How did you score the fight between Hooker and Felder? Did the 2 judges who scored it for Hooker get it right, or did the 1 judge who scored it for Felder get it right, and why?
Well, I scored at 48-47 for Felder. I gave him the 2nd, the 4th, and the 5th round. I gave Hooker the 1st and the 3rd. I thought that the American landed the harder shots. That said, I don't really have an issue with the decision. I think there was 1 decisive round in the entire fight, and I think that one was the 1st round for Hooker. And even that, I don't think was like extremely decisive. I actually understand how Hooker won. I mean, he outlanded, if you go by it, he outlanded Felder in significant strikes in the 1st, 3rd, and 5th round. They had the same amount in the 2nd round. Only 1 round did Felder land more significant strikes. Now, I'm going to sidetrack for a second. This is my point that not all significant strikes are equal, because I think that Felder landed harder punches. And if a guy lands a jab and another guy lands a crushing overhand right, they shouldn't be scored the same when you count significant strikes. That said, going back to why I understand why people think Hooker won. I mean, he's the only one to get a takedown. And the biggest thing, he's the one who did the most damage. I mean, Felder's face was showing it after the very first round on through the rest of the fight. And then most of all is every time he lands a punch,
10 seconds.
Every time he lands a punch, the New Zealand crowd was going crazy for him. So that's going to obviously influence the judges. So I got no issue with Hooker getting the win. It was extremely close.
Davidson, what do you think?
hard to encapsulate anything other than exactly what Keith just said. A lot of what he said is what I'm going to say. I mean, I gave Hooker the first two and gave Felder the last three, 48-47 for the Irish Dragon. And rounds 3 to 5 were really close. I thought 1 was pretty decisive for Hooker. I kind of thought 4 was somewhat decisive for Felder. Round 5, a lot closer, obviously, and Hooker going with the takedown a la Johnny Hendricks in the first Robbie Lawler fight style type of thing, a round swayer, for lack of a better term. But it's the same kind of deal here. Hooker gets him down late, looked to work as much as he could on top with the allotted time left. But it wasn't a robbery to me at all either, and we're going to get into the word robbery more a little bit, and I'll shine some light as to why. But, I mean, I was fine with it, and either man winning would have been fine with, I believe, everyone or just about everybody. And quite frankly, we all knew it was going to be Hooker's anyway when it was down in Auckland anyways, if it was going to go to the scorecard. So I don't have a huge problem with it, but it was a close fight between two really good fighters.
John, like Davidson said, it was a close fight. And in my opinion, the real winners were us and the fans who got to watch those two warriors battle it out in the octagon. They both overcame some adversity and they left absolutely everything in that octagon. So with that said, in your eyes, who won that fight?
Mike, you like themes. The whole panel likes themes. The people demand themes. So 90s hip hop is the theme. So let's start with hit you with no delaying. So what you saying, yo? That's what these two guys did. They hit you with no delaying. Put your hands where my eyes can see by Busta Rhymes. I gave it 3 rounds to 2 for Daniel Hooker. I thought he won the first 3, not decisively. This wasn't a decisive fight. I think Felder tried to steal a round at the end. Can't remember if it was the second or third, but he had a nice flurry to end the round. I like stats. Craig likes stats. I feel obligated that I'm in his spot. I should do stats. When I look at striking stats, I don't look at the total number. I look at the percentages, right? How much, I mean, total number is important unless you get blown out, but I like percentages, right? First round, Hooker hit on 52%. Second round, 60%. Third round, 61%. He didn't drop under 50% until the 4th round. I thought he was a more effective striker. I thought he was doing more of what he wanted to do in all the first 3 rounds. Then I think Paul Felder came on. I don't want to fall into the false narrative that just because Felder wore the damage worse than Hooker did, that means that Hooker was more effective. I just think he was landing better shots and more of them.
Cole, what do you think?
Yeah, I had 48-47 Hooker. I had Hooker 135. I thought, like as Keith said, only round 1 I thought was the only real definitive round. But again, with the just the striking, I thought Hooker threw the more volume. He had the harder shots, and just percentage-wise, he was landing a lot more of the shots that he threw. I think, too, that I know it shouldn't play into the factor, but I think it does, is whenever Hooker landed, you heard the crowd pop. Like, you have the energy from the arena that when Hooker lands something big, like, it seems bigger just because he's getting all the cheers. And I think, too, that, like, Hooker was just the one coming forward a lot. He was the one, he had the harder shots. He was throwing more. Just, I think Hooker won, but again, this isn't a robbery. If you scored for Felder, like I could see how you scored for Felder, but I thought 4 rounds could have went either way. I thought round 1 is the only one for Hooker, but I scored for Hooker.
Yeah, it was good fighting. Cole, I kind of want to go back to you for a moment if I could, because at the end, Paul Felder teases retirement. He has a 4-year-old daughter who he's very close with, and you know, it's tough leaving her for these fights, especially for a week at a time. And as a parent myself, I completely get where he's coming from. That said, do you think we see Felder compete in the octagon again?
I think we do. I think we saw his coach and manager after say that his retirement, he isn't for sure. Like he's going to think about it. I think he's going to fight in. I think he's going to fight in the States where it's not going to be a huge travel away from his kid. Even if he doesn't fight again, he has a lot of income coming from the broadcast, but he's still not that old. He's still top contender at lightweight where he only needs 1-2 wins and he's right back up there. Like, I think a match against Ali Quinta, they were supposed to fight at 223 before Ali Quinta stepped in to fight Habib. That's a fight that makes sense. Both of them are struggling. Both of them are coming off losses. Like, ranking-wise, it makes sense. So I think we'll see Felder again. But if we don't, like, he's set for with all his jobs.
John, what do you think? Do you think Paul Felder comes back?
Mute, buddy.
Mute.
You're
Still
muted. He said, "Oh, come on."
What's going on? Who brought the rookie here? I think Paul Felder will be back. I do not think it will be a return of the Mac, but I do think that he'll be back. I think he likes being in the limelight too much. I think he does have a good job outside of the cage. I don't think those jobs are quite as illustrious as people seem to think they are. They probably pay okay, but Paul Felder's not DC. He's not Dominic Cruz. He's not getting that kind of money. So I think that he'll be back. I think he needs to keep his skills sharp. And the guy likes to fight. No one fights like Paul Felder that doesn't love fighting. And I think that he's going to miss it.
Davidson, what do you think?
I've struggled with this. I think he's going to miss it as well, but I think he was dead serious in the octagon after the fight when he said he missed his 4-year-old as well. And I think that that is an integral part as to what's going to happen with Paul Felder going forward. I am one of the only people in this network. I know there's more than one of us, but I'm one of the only people that do not have offspring, do not have little me walking around anywhere. So I don't know these feelings and I can't sympathize with them. However, at the end of the day, and yes, thank God for that, maybe so. At the end of the day, it seemed to me like I believed him when he said what he said about his child after the fight as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he came back, but how many times he does fight again, I think that's the real question.
And we rounded off with Keith. Do you think we see Paul Felder back? You're a parent. You have some little Keiths running around. So, what's your take on this?
Well, first of all, I want to go after Cole and John because they both was talking about Daniel Hooker having more volume. It's actually not true. Paul Felder actually threw 9 more punches than Daniel Hooker did. Yeah, I mean, do I think he's going to come back? I mean, how many guys don't come back that they say they retire? I mean, Forrest Griffin was a guy that was, still kind of the top of his game that didn't come back. That's the first one that came to mind. There's not many other guys. I mean, we've seen it. But I think the UFC will go out to him, tell him that the world is his. I think Paul Felder will sit out for a little while, say that his minds are playing tricks on him. He'll see that the staying away from the fight game will be a little too juicy for him, and then he'll get back in there because it's all about the creed.
All right. I thought we were going to get a lot more out of you, Keith, but well done. With that being said, Davidson is going to jump off with the first 10 points of the night. It was a good opening round. As we head to the second question, and I feel like this is something that needs to be discussed. Let's go back to the word robbery for a second, because even with close fights like Jones and Reyes, and again with Hooker and Felder on Saturday, that word robbery gets thrown out so much more now than it did, say, 4 or 5 years ago. So I want to get your input on this, gentlemen. Davidson, we're going to start with you. Why do you think the word robbery is thrown out so often and used so loosely these days, like even in coin flip fights like the one we saw in the UFC Auckland headliner?
I'm not so sure, to be definitive, Mike, but if one thing is for sure, I know you've taken issue with it, this term being, tossed around like a rag doll in the past couple of weeks, or at least it seems that way. And I don't know definitively why it is thrown around as often as it is. If I had to take a stab at it, I'd say it's maybe the shortcut of a way, or the lazy way out for a way for a fan to say that if I were a judge, I would have had the other guy winning. You can just say the word robbery and you get your entire point across. I mean, when someone wants to get their opinion across that they scored the fight for the loser, you can just say robbery away like it's nothing and you don't even think anything of it. I think that's probably what it is. I even tweeted a GIF of a masked man, I'm not here for the debate about it, but of a masked man holding a gun at a cash register, robbery, to signify after it, I scored it for Felder. I think Hooker's about to get this scorecard nod, but I didn't actually think it was like a robbery. Like I said, it was a close fight between 2 really good fighters. And I just thought that the man that should have got his hand raised if I were in that seat didn't. And that's the only reason why I said that.
John Franklin, why is this word being thrown around so much? Why is it the loosest word in MMA right now?
Son, they shook because ain't no such thing as halfway crooks, scared to death, scared to look, because they think they won something and it got taken away from them. They don't care if it's a close fight. They think they won. They think them, their fans, their corners, everyone is kicking mad flavor in their ear that they won, so they think that's what it is. I understand where it's coming from because they're only looking at it from their perspective. If you thought that you won a fight and all the things that are it's not that you're being robbed of the fight. You're being robbed of the future. You're being robbed of everything that would have come with winning that fight. The next fight, moving forward, just because it was a close fight doesn't mean you just go, oh well, back to the drawing board. We both gave it our best. If you think you won and something's taken away from you, well, of course you think it's a robbery.
Oh, okay. I thought we had some more. We haven't even had to go to the 10-second warning at all here. This is crazy. We're going to move on to Cole here. Cole, we've seen, actual robberies in MMA. I think Diego Sanchez and Martin Kampman comes to mind. Machida Shogun 1 is another that comes to mind. But, these others that we're talking about from the last couple of weeks, these aren't robberies. Why do people keep saying they are?
I think part of it is the lack of fans knowing how judges score fights, and I think it's a lot of a bias for their favorite fighters and the commentary. Like we see time and time again, the commentary, it seems like they have a huge bias. Like Felicia Spencer, Chris Cyborg, Felicia Spencer was not even in that fight. It wasn't even close. And Rogan kept on saying, oh, here we go. Like Spencer's looking really good. This last fight, Jones Reyes, I thought Jones won. Again, Rogan thought just because Reyes was doing so well that it seems just, if you're listening to it, you're a casual fan, you hear Rogan saying, oh, this person's doing so well, you're going to think, oh, they're winning their rounds. I think that's part of it. But again, like, I just think robbery, like, it's just such an easy term, as Davidson said, to throw away. Instead of trying to explain why you think they won, they just go, oh, that's a robbery. And then your kind of conversation's over with. But given I have a few more seconds of my time, too, I'd like to Keith. Hooker actually outlanded Felder. If you look at UFC stats, he had 133, Felder had 119. Significant strides, Hooker had 122, Felder had 110. So that's it.
Wow. Cole didn't even use the full minute. He used his last 10 seconds. It was still 10 minutes short to call Keith out a little bit. And Keith, it is now your turn to answer this question about the word robbery, and feel free to use your time however you'd like.
Well, I'll go right back at him because he said their stats wrong, because you guys are talking about the volume and how much they threw. That's what I said. The guy who threw more strikes was Paul Felder. Okay. As far as this question, why does the word robbery get thrown around? The word robbery gets thrown around because MMA fans are a bunch of idiots. Next question.
That's it?
That's it.
All right. Well, thank God John Franklin is here. I never thought I'd say that in the history of the show, but alas, we are here. We have our first rebuttal of the night. It is from Mr. John Franklin himself. So throw us the noise, John. We are ready.
Just hit the east side of the BTL on a mission trying to find Mr. Cole Shell. Mr. Shelton, here's my issue with what you said about MMA fans not being knowledgeable about judges. Judges aren't knowledgeable about judges. So, yeah, I would call a fight a robbery if I was a fan, too, if I know these guys screw it up half the time. So how can I count on what they're going to do when I'm seeing fights that I think are clearly for Dominic Reyes and others not going their way? I can't have some judge preaching to me what he thinks he saw when they blow the number of fights that they blow. So, yeah, you could take a shot at MMA fans if you want, but also take a shot at judging because it sucks worse than fans.
Cole, what would you like to say in response?
Well, yeah, the judges, that's a whole other conversation. The judges aren't good. There's a lot of good judges like Sal D'Amato, Chris Lee, like a lot of the usual names. I think judges get thrown out of the bus a lot too. Like Joe Solis, there was one bad judge in Texas. When was the last bad real judge scorecard you can remember? Like, I don't think they all happen as often as everyone thinks. I think judges are competent enough. There are some bad ones, but the judges, I think that's a whole other thing that they obviously need a lot of work. But I don't know. It's hard because the judges, like, there's a lot of good ones and there's a lot of bad ones. Just like any job you're going to see, there's going to be good people at a job and a lot of bad people at a job.
Well, my pushback to that would be who's a person who can be counted on to adequately judge these fights. I'm looking at the media scores, right? I'll count myself in this group. I'll count Cole in this group, right? Drake Riggs, Eddie Mercado, Junkie, and Dominic Durnalot, whoever he is, all scored it for Hooker. Me and Cole both scored it for Hooker. Everybody else that I'm looking at scored it for Felder. So if you want to tell me that Barry Foley, Howard Hughes, and David Letheby are more connected than all those people to the sport of mixed martial arts and watch more fights, maybe not.
All right. I like it. First rebuttal of the night. And with that, John Franklin's going to get 10 points. How about that? Nice use of the rebuttal as we move on to our third question, because it was a busy weekend in the world of combat sports and in the world of mixed martial arts. Let's take a look at the rest of the action. We had 2 Bellator cards. We had the rest of the UFC Auckland card. There were over 50 fights between these 3 events between Friday and Saturday. So, John Franklin, which one fighter, in your opinion, stole the show over the weekend in MMA with their performance?
Let's start this off with hashtag prisoner of the moment, just to get us prepared for what I'm about to bring at you. But I'll say it like this: she's funk like that, she's fat like that, she's in like that because she swings like that, she jabs like that, she freaks like that, she zooms like that. She's out. She's out. Rebirth is slick. Angela Hill, short notice fight. She's coming back in there. I'm gonna steal. You want to talk about a robbery? I'm about to steal this from somebody I saw on Twitter. Could she be the next Jorge Masvidal? Right? Is that jumping the gun a little bit too much? Maybe. But before the Masvidal fights, that would have been jumping the gun as well before he went on his run. I think that she took a short notice fight and did a lot to help herself. I think that she might be one of the best, one of the next big stars in MMA. And I'm saying that with full understanding that I'm being a prisoner of the moment. Mike?
I thought I was waiting for the back to you. That's why. That's why you got me delayed. It's all right. It's all right. Cole Shelton, who stole the weekend in your opinion in MMA?
Well, I'm not even going to touch that Dublin card. If you're tape delayed, I don't even view that as a real card. Like, get out of here. I think I'm going to UFC Alcon. I'm going Brad Riddell. I think this guy's going to be a star in that region. He's had 2 fights. He's had fight of the night against Jamie Mullarkin, this Mustafayev fight. That arguably could have been fight of the night if Felder Hooker wasn't there. Like, that was probably the second best fight on the card. He brings up the energy. Like, he was waving his arms during the fight. He's a striking coach for Israel Adesanya, Alexander Volkanovski. The Australian, New Zealand crowd's going to get behind them. They're going back to Australia, 241 on or 251 for Perth. I think Riddell's going to be on that card. I think he's going to get a ranked guy. His striking, he puts on fun fights because he's primarily a striker. I think he had another great performance. I think he's only going to grow up from here. And especially at lightweight, lightweight, you only need, he can fight one of these big names. If he gets a win, he's right up there as a big star. And this win kind of catapulted him to get a top 15 guy.
Keith, so many fights. Craig Allen and his brother Matt, who, you said you had the shortest answer in between Link Century. Matt Allen had the shortest tenure in the history of Loudmouth MMA. But those 2 guys broke down most of those 50-plus fights. I'm sure you didn't watch those, but I'm sure you watched a lot of the fights that actually went down this weekend. Who's your weekend show stealer in MMA?
Well, it was a good day for Big Papa. Had all the women saying, "What a man." And I'm agreeing with Cole Shelton. It's Brad Riddell. The guy's now 2-0 in the UFC with back-to-back wins. He's on a 5-fight winning streak. He fights out of arguably the best gym, or at least the hottest gym in the world, in City Kickboxing. He was an underdog in this fight. I thought he clearly won. I don't think it should have been a split decision. I know some people disagree with me. He showed improvement in his wrestling. He actually took down a high-level wrestler at the end of the fight. The guy's a world champion in kickboxing. The last high-level kickboxer to come out of City Kickboxing, doing pretty well. His name's Israel Adesanya. Listen, my man Cole is right. John is insane in the membrane right now because Angela Hill beat a freaking atomweight that none of us even know how to pronounce her name. Back to you.
Keith, I'm digging this new style right now. Now you're throwing in the 90s theme as well. Davidson, I don't know how much 90s music you know, especially of the hip-hop genre, but who is your weekend show stealer? Oh, he's looking ready. You looking ready to pop.
Ooh. I sit on the side of the fence that believes Nasty Nas is the greatest rapper to ever live. But regardless, I really wanted to say Ricky Bandejas here, and what I will agree with Cole about is tape delay, not getting any credit from me. 0 credit from me. Get your shit figured out, Viacom. Excuse my language. But you couldn't see him in America Live. That being said, I'm going to stay across the Bellator lines because the shorter, kind of weirder looking Tyson Fury doppelganger stole the show on Friday. Mr. Timothy Johnson actually scored a career revitalizing type of win and did not do it at all against any type of scrub by any mean of the imagination. This is a guy that could have been gotten at plus 600, depending on where you were betting. Tim Johnson, obviously, too, fought in the UFC for a while, not on the best stretch of his career at the moment, and coming in against a guy with Tyrell Fortune, like I said, a big underdog on top of an 8-0 record, serious wrestling background. He was considered one of the top 3 wrestlers in the United States at 125 kilograms for a considerable amount of time. And Johnson clipped him and put him out. And I don't think anybody saw that coming. I'm sure that's got to feel good for him. He's my winner of the weekend.
And the winner of this round, Mr. Cole Shelton, gets the 10 points. Some good answers there as we head to question number 4. And then we're going to say goodbye to somebody, possibly. We'll see what happens here. But with all the the big events and the big fights going on in combat sports, the biggest event over the weekend, and it wasn't even close, was the highly anticipated rematch between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury in Las Vegas. I mean, the fight did huge numbers at the gate. I'm sure the pay-per-view numbers are going to end up being gigantic, but man, Tyson Fury goes out there and simply outclassed Deontay Wilder. He outdid literally everything Wilder did, from the walkout to the final bell. Once the towel got thrown in, it was all Tyson Fury as he gets the 7th round TKO win after Wilder's co-trainer throws in the towel. So within an hour or so after the fight ends, Tyson Fury was called out, and he wasn't called out by boxers, but he was called out by 2 active and highly ranked UFC heavyweights, one being the world champion in Stipe Miocic, and the other was Francis Ngannou. So Cole, let's begin with you. What did you make of these callouts by Stipe and Ngannou to Fury? Are you with it, or do you think this is just absolutely ridiculous?
It's so dumb. There's a reason why they're calling them out. Do you see what they were guaranteed? They were guaranteed at least $28 million. Like, there's no wonder why Ngannou and Stipe, who's the UFC heavyweight champion, I think for the last Cormier rematch, I think it was like 750,000 he made. It's not a fight I'd even want to see. It wouldn't even be close. Tyson Fury would outbox Ngannou and Miocic. There's not even a question about it. If you did MMA, Miocic and Ngannou would beat Tyson Fury. We saw Conor Floyd. Everyone thought Conor had a shot, and Floyd dominated that fight. It wasn't even close. He took it. He could have ended that fight whenever he wanted. He made it go on longer because he wanted it to be a show. These boxing, UFC, MMA callouts need to stop. Like, unless I want to see a boxer come into MMA, which I think is high and leg just because of the paydays. Like, these UFC fighters need to just start focusing on themselves, because Ngannou's a fight against Rosenstruck next month. Stipe's got to fight Cormier. Like, they have their own task at hand, so I don't care to see any of these fights, and I think it's so dumb that they're calling each other out.
Keith, I got to tell you, of all the questions that have come up tonight, this is the one I was looking forward to hearing your answer the most, and hopefully you provide more than you did in the second question. And I have a feeling this is the one. This is the one.
Well, I wish guys would stop calling out boxers. Listen, I'm just going to ignore Francis Ngannou. Listen, you're not even the heavyweight champion of the world. You're not going to get the title shot. He better check himself. He's drinking too much gin and juice. But if you're Stipe, man, why not call him out? I mean, like Cole said, I saw 25 million, 28 million. Even if he gets a fifth of that to fight Tyson Fury, that's $5 million. And that would be way more than he's ever made in his career. But it won't happen. He is so out of his mind to even waste it. Think about this. Go back a little while ago. He almost didn't get the DC rematch because he wasn't a big enough name. And if it wasn't for Brock Lesnar falling out, 49-year-old Brock Lesnar, how old he is, not getting a shot, Stipe would be still crying at the fire station or whatever. Listen, he should be more concerned about the heavyweight division MMA. DC beat him once and was way on his way to beating him the second time before the comeback. You got Ngannou and Rosenstruck, who's probably next line. They're both big, huge, heavy hitters. You got Curtis Blades, who suddenly is a striker now, and he's well-rounded. And then, of course, you got John Jones, the greatest fighter of all time. Listen, that's who they should be worrying about. Now, if Tyson Fury, who's even joked about coming to MMA, which is an absolute joke, if he does, let me give you one advice, Tyson Fury. You better protect your neck.
Wow. Lived up to the hype, Keith. But we're going to go to Davidson here. I don't know how you top that, but, we knew these callouts are coming. It's like being rear-ended in your car when you see the car that hits you coming from a mile away. Like, sure, you grab the steering wheel to brace yourself, but it still wrecks the back of your car. Like, it's still going to do damage. With that said, this is the world of prize fighting, and who are we to discourage anyone for trying to get paid? And so I ask you, Davidson, are you rolling your eyes thinking back at these callouts from Saturday, or, does it make you feel a little bit good inside at the end of the day?
Only thing that made me feel good inside on this topic could be really encapsulated and represented by one tweet sent out by someone very known in this space named Dave Doyle, and it's short, sweet, to the point, and it simply states, "Hi, UFC heavyweights. No, you do not want to box Tyson Fury." It's so simple. It's so exactly correct, and these guys should take that advice. Yes, that includes Stipe Miocic. Yes, that includes Francis Ngannou. If you fight in the UFC at heavyweight, You don't want to box Tyson Fury. You probably don't want to box Anthony Joshua. You don't want to box Deontay Wilder. You don't want to box any of these guys. And listen, Fury was brilliant from walkout to the towel being thrown on Saturday night. And UFC heavyweights really need to understand that it's just a different realm. And I don't think anybody thinks they're Conor McGregor by any stretch, but I do believe that these guys need to campaign for fights as much as they can while their career is hot. And even if so, it's going to create eye rolls for me and other people because, I mean, I hope it gets no traction. I like watching entertainment, gentlemen. I don't like painful inevitabilities. I didn't like the NBA while the Warriors were winning 73 games, and it's the same kind of thing here.
John Franklin, can you out 90s hip hop Keith tonight? Because he's taken your theme and he is like Michael Johnson in the 90s during the Olympics. He's just running away with it and breaking records.
Mike, I'll do you one better. I'll take one that he did and do it better. So, who you trying to get crazy with? I say, don't you know I'm loco? To the one on the flam, boy, it's tough. I just tossed that ham in the frying pan like Spam. It's done when I come in, slam. That's how it goes with boxers and MMA fighters. When the boxer comes in, it's done, slam. The problem with MMA fighters is this. The reason why no boxers called out Tyson Fury is because they know better. Nobody wants what Fury put on Wilder this weekend. Nobody wants that. What MMA fighters live in right now is a gangster's paradise. They live in a world where they're the toughest guys around, and they all know, Mike, that if they got in a fight with these boxers, they'd kick their ass. They know it for sure because they would. They're better fighters. What they are not is better boxers. And if they want to go in there and get into a boxing match, they're going to get tuned up way worse than Deontay Wilder did. They're going to get cracked. And if all these call-outs want to stop, the boxers can make money with it. They don't want it to stop. Here's how it stops. One of these boxers just says, okay, Stipe Miocic, let's go. Bring him in there and you treat him like the boxer that he is. And you crack him and you get out of there quick and they'll stop calling you out. But if you carry him like Floyd carried Conor, then all these guys are going to think, hey, I've sparred with Conor. I've been in the ring with Conor. If he went that long with Floyd, Floyd's an old guy, I can do it too. Take one of these fights, Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, that kid Usyk, just take the fight. Take Ngannou, crack him. Get him out of there in one round. You'll never hear another call it again.
Keith Shelton, I was wondering when this rebuttal would come. I figured it would come with this question at some point, but he waited till the very end. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I got to talk about it. I agree with John when he's saying that they shouldn't want these fights. I mean, even Conor McGregor, he got the biggest payday, but as we've seen, his life is falling apart. Or as they like to say, more money, more problems. But I didn't want to even rebuttal this one. I actually want to go back to the last question where I want to jump in there. Listen, Davison mentioned Ricky Bandejas as the highlight of the Dublin card. Why was he the highlight of the Dublin card? Because he got a second-round knockout. That was a cannabis reference. Best diss track ever. Anyways, listen, stop doing things on tape delay. You're better off coming to America, do it in America. Maybe you could do it in Tennessee. Maybe you could give California some love. Get all the fighters, go to MSG and have the New York State of Mind. I think it'd be perfect to do it in the summertime. New York State of Mind is probably the greatest rap song by Nas. Anyways, John, I credit you for coming up with this idea, but you got to remember, you got to make sure I'm not on the show because I'll just take it and as they like to say, they like flip the script. That's what I do because you know what? You can't touch this.
This is getting out of control.
I mean, that was so good. Like, who did you
once again, Mike?
On that?
Once again, like every week, there was no recap show, so I had to make sure that once again I could bring the best out of Keith Shelton, like I always do.
Well, I'll tell you what, Keith has made it on. He's going to the next question. There will be no elimination quite yet, but that makes things even more interesting heading into this last question because two people are going home after this final question of regulation. Let's take a look ahead to this weekend as the UFC is heading to Norfolk, Virginia. The main event will be a fight between Joseph Benavidez and Deiveson Figueiredo, which was actually broken by Mr. Cole Shelton, who's on the panel right now. It's going to be for the vacant UFC flyweight title. Now, that is a very intriguing fight, but we still have 11 other fights on the card. So, Keith, if someone were to ask you, hey, I heard it's a good main event, man, but I'm not sure if I want to spend my Saturday night watching this card, unless you can give me two other fights that you think are really, really good, what are you telling these folks?
Well, I'd say that was a good question. it made me say, anyways, that was a stretch. All right, the two best ones is Ismail Nadia versus Sean Brady. Nadia is 2-1 in the UFC. He pulled that massive upset over Michel Prazeres, who was at the time on an 8-fight winning streak. The guy came back in his last fight, getting a win, going against Sean Brady, who's undefeated, former CFFC champion, a guy that I wrote about as one of my top prospects last year, and he fights out of Daniel Gracie's gym in Philly, which is one of these like rides. It's like the new Fortis MMA City Kickboxing. It's been on the rise. Check out that gym. The other fight is Ian Kutalaba versus Magomed Ankalaev. I mean, that should be everybody's answer. Kutalaba is a absolute wild man. Another rap question. He's got super big power. He's pure violence. He gets everyone shook. Ankalaev is 12-1. His only loss was a fight that he was absolutely decimating Paul Craig until he got submitted with 1 second left. He wins that fight. You're probably talking about a guy who's ranked high in the top 10, probably fighting someone higher than Ankalaev. Guy's well-rounded. He's got some of the best ground and pound, one of the best prospects. Between their true power going at it with the ferocity that somebody is going to go lights out. And then the next day, if you're going back to my friend who's asked me, the biggest reason why that fight is going to be guaranteed knockout, that the next day you can tell your friends and family that, as Scarface said, I seen a man die.
Damn, bro. Drake Riggs came in and said, damn it, I'm way late like Kyle was for Off the Cuff. Did you guys start on time? Kind of. I mean, we were going to plan on 9. We ended up pushing it to 9:10, so we were a little late, not even close to being as late as Kyle was for Off the Cuff last week, but it is what it is. Davidson, what are you telling these folks? I mean, the main event's good. What are the 2 other fights that you're going to say, dude, you got to watch these fights on Saturday?
My honorable mention would have been one that Keith named. I love Nardiev and Brady. The fact that it's the first fight on this card is kind of disgusting, and maybe it urges people to go out and catch the prelims. He also was correct in saying Kutalaba and Ankalaev should absolutely be everybody's answer here. This is a fight right now. You know, a lot of guys throwing out guys' names at 205 pounds that can maybe knock on the door and creep into title contention as like this new future regime of talent going up against John Jones. For one, myself, squarely have my eyes on Magomed Ankalaev as potentially being a guy that creeps into that future space in the future. He's 3-1 for the promotion, and people forget that one loss was a fight that he outstruck Paul Craig by, I think, 120 significant strikes and tapped to a triangle in the very last second. This guy is a killer. And Ian Kutalaba, a wild man as well. My other one would be Brendan Allen and Tom Breeze, a couple of talented guys from each side of the world. Brendan Allen has been good in his UFC tenure, and he was really one of the top prospects that fought really top guys and picked up a few losses on the regional scene before he got in here. Tom Breeze has had some unlucky bounces with fights being canceled and such, but that's another guy on a tear. Those would be my 2 fights I'd sell fans on.
John, let me tee you up with the right introduction here. Na 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 na. Here comes the hot step, turn it up. Yeah, John, what's your 2 fights? I know you like to dive deep into these prelims, bro.
Yeah, I'm nothing if not a prelim deep diver. So listen, I'm from this area. I'm from Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach. Missy Elliott is from this area. So I'm hoping that maybe some fighters will work it. Hoping some fighters will maybe get their freak on. Hoping some fighters might lose control. I will refrain from saying that I'm looking for some hot boys. I will refrain from saying that Felicia Spencer might be Miss New Booty. So that aside, also from this area is Pharrell Williams. So I'm sure some of these fighters will be up all night to get lucky. I'm sure some of these fighters might see some blurred lines if they get cracked a couple times. And at the end, they'll just be happy. I'm looking for Tom Breeze versus Brendan Allen. I'm looking for Luis Pena versus Steve Garcia Jr. because everyone tells me, the prelim follower that I am, I've heard before, Tom Breeze and Luis Pena, I got to take these guys seriously. They're serious prospects. They should be going somewhere. Breeze might be the next Bisbing. Luis Pena is the next nothing. He's the first that I've ever seen guy look like that. But Violent Bob Ross, these are guys that are like the future of their divisions. I'm not seeing it, but this is a time to, kind of take a card that most people have sort of looked past and show us who you are. So that's who I'm looking for. Back to you, Mike.
I don't think any of those references were 90 songs, but it is what it is. Cole, Shelton, what are your two under the radar fights? What are the fights you're telling your friends to watch if they're only interested in the main event but are sort of on the fence here?
Well, honestly, advice would be maybe skip it. There's outside of the main event, there is no ranked fighters. There's no ranked fighters on the card except for the main event. When's the last time a UFC show had that? But if I have to give two, it's Ankalaev, Jan Kutalaba. That one's probably an end and finish. Ankalaev just had that nice front kick, knockout over Dalja. Jan Kutalaba TKO'd Khalil Rountree last time out. The other fight, I mean, maybe I'll go the co-main, Felicia Spencer, just because, hey, you can see the next girl to get dominated by Amanda Nunes next. Because Nunes has been vocal about wanting to fight at featherweight. Spencer, she's easily going to beat Zara. It's going to be a first or second round stoppage. She's going to look good doing so, and then she's going to fight Nunes next, and Nunes can be the first champ to defend her featherweight belt. So those are probably my two fights, but it is not a good card.
It's an interesting take on that one, I have to say. And now we come to the decision. Let's see. I'm anticipating someone to mention the featherweight fights. I see you, Cole. Tom Bree still has plenty of time to pull out. Drake Riggs, thank you for being our only commenter tonight. I really appreciate that on our first go around here on Between the Links live on the Loudmouth MMA YouTube channel. With that being said, very close game. This part of the job sucks. I don't know what to do. Someone's going to be pissed, especially if Keith gets sent home early. But unfortunately, he came back in a big way, so he's moving on to the finals. And taking him on, Davidson Baker. In a very good battle. I think Cole was kind of screwed on that last question because everyone else gave out like the fights before him, and he was just like, what could I really do here? You know, he tried to pull something out. It was tough. It was tough. Cole, any parting words for the folks?
No, that's it. Just enjoy the title fight. Should be good. Other than that, it's a card.
It's a card.
Cole, never be confused for a UFC employee.
It's a card. Cole, you're the man, dude. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Cole.
All right. John, you got to stick around and do what you do?
It's in my contract. I have to.
That's right.
Can I say something to John real quick?
No.
Yes, of course.
Listen, I'm sorry to see John eliminated, but as the OC would have said, his time is up as me and Davidson are passing him by. But, dude, don't worry. Keep your head up. Grab 5 and put it on me because I will make sure you win all the Benjamins. The world is still yours, John. I will be there for you.
You got to stop this fight.
Listen, after the show, I get around. I got a date with Anita Applebaum.
Keith is getting whiter and whiter as the show goes on. My God.
That was, you know, like the Bonita Applebaum reference.
It's not the reference. It's you saying it the way you're saying it. It's
you crushed
with
it,
so
buddy.
much
Don't let anybody
pizzazz,
say you
the
different.
hand movements and the smiles and the.
Well, I expected to lose, so it was gonna. I expected to be eliminated, so it would have worked better. As I'm saying, I'm leaving. It would work. It would have flowed better.
Well, you came back and made it happen, man. I got to give you props for that. Before we get to the final question, if you listen to the show, you know this is coming. Just make sure you subscribe to the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network. Make sure you do it right here on this channel, but also do so anywhere you find your favorite podcast: Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, etc. Because no one's doing what this network is doing. No one is doing what Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network is doing. And yes, there are other networks doing more than 1 or 2 podcasts, but not like this network. You're not going to find the variety of shows and all the different shows that you find here. So find out for yourself, see what I'm talking about. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. Subscribe to the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network on all platforms, including this YouTube page right now. So David Baker, I need a number between 1 and 25.
12.
Keith.
I'm so confident. I see the bitch in you, Davidson.
Oh my God.
I'll let you pick first. Well, I'll let you pick whatever you want.
You'll
All
let
right.
me pick whatever number you want.
No, whatever you want.
No,
You
he's
go
just-
first,
he's-
I'm kicking off.
All right, Keith's going to go first.
This will be the
and
biggest slaughter since Kumo B took out Busy B.
Oh my God, dude.
That's technically the 80s, but whatever.
Keith might just win the game without even getting the question asked to him.
I have. It's always a bad strategy to go first. I just wanted to get that "I see the bitch in you" reference in there.
Oh yeah, all right, fair enough. So my 6-year-old son was the deciding factor in this question on the drive home from my sister-in-law's birthday party today. But he chose the question. I gave him 2 options. He went with this one. So, Keith, at the beginning of Ariel Helwani's MMA show today, Ariel spoke out about Dan Hooker calling out Justin Gaethje following the UFC Auckland main event. And Ariel said that the timing may not have been great. And the reason why the timing may not have been great is that the preliminary plan right now is to book Conor McGregor for a fight in the summer. And the current front runner at the moment is Justin Gaethje. So the question is, if you could put a percentage on the likelihood of Conor McGregor fighting Justin Gaethje this summer, where would you put it and why?
Well, I'm going to back up to Ariel Helwani's thing. I didn't listen to it, so I don't know what his beef would be with Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker wants that fight. Why wouldn't he call him out? Daniel Hooker is not as connected as Ariel Helwani, that he doesn't have all those sources to know that the UFC is making that fight. So if that's
hold on. To be fair, he wasn't saying it was a bad call. He's saying the timing might not be good because they're putting this McGregor fight together. He appreciated the call out. He's saying that the McGregor fight is Gaethje's the front runner, so the timing just may not have been. It may not have been a good time to do so.
Well, I'm gonna say this about Daniel Hooker. He should have called someone out, but it shouldn't have been Gaethje. It should have been Conor himself. He should have said, "Hey, Conor, you called out Paul Felder when you won. I just beat him. How about you give me a shot? I'll fight you. I'll fight you in Ireland. I'll be the only one with the balls to actually fight you in Ireland." Say something like that, and then you actually might get a Conor McGregor fight. As far as the percentage of McGregor versus Gaethje, listen, the biggest name in the sport, Ariel Helwani, some people love him, some people love him, but he's usually pretty right. And if he's saying it, I'm going to at least put it at 70% that's the likelihood. There's been some back and forth with them, which would make it seem like that both guys want it. Obviously, Gaethje wants it because who doesn't want to get the biggest payday of their career? And the reason why I only put it at 70% is you can't really. I mean, obviously, there's always injuries, but you can't trust Conor. Who knows? Like next week, he might act crazy and if he might have a gun up in the place and shoot up the place. But so I'm gonna put. All right, I'm gonna. Sorry. So 70%.
Oh man. Davidson, you're up, man. I don't know if you're gonna have a hard time following this, or if you're just so happy and you're salivating you get to follow that.
No, I get to come in with the '90s reference of my own to steal the win in this show because Keith just used the time is wasting with no mind elevation like dime sack lacing and court pen pacing. Because that was a lot of wasted time there, I think, with that answer. 70% is about right. 50% would be where I would go. Just about one thing Keith did say that I do agree with for sure. I don't trust Conor as far as I could throw him. And he could wake up next week and maybe not so grab a firearm, but do something to the effect of, I have all this money. I want even more money. He's done this before. He's done this plenty of times. Like, no, I'm going to negotiate for even more. Or, no, I'm going to wake up and demand this. Or, no, I'm going to wake up and demand that. And, oh, maybe Floyd Mayweather calls. I mean, who knows? I mean, until that fight has pen to paper, there's always going to be like cautious optimism at the very best when it comes to Conor McGregor getting in there. Regardless, it's 50-50 for me. It's much closer to that than a 3-quarter split.
So are you saying like that Conor, because obviously he's so good, he's like half man, half amazing? Like that? Or listen, you said that he's going to set the price really high. He's probably set the price as the sky's the limit, like that.
I can't do this anymore, man. These
listen, you said Nas
still got taken over by 1990s hip hop.
Listen, the problem is Daniel Hooker had the chance, and he only needed one mic to call out. I hope you get that reference. He only needed one mic to call out Conor McGregor, and he didn't take it. He blew it.
I appreciated his call out of Gaethje too, and I thought that was obviously though before Helwani. I like Keith too. I didn't hear the interview myself, but I maybe not the interview, but I didn't hear the blurb from Helwani myself. But I thought the call out of Gaethje made a lot of sense. I also was kind of skeptical on them putting Gaethje and Conor in the same ring together too in the first place.
So you're saying the call out was about as empty as KRS's rally against Nelly? Is that what you're saying?
Even
Sure.
John's getting sick of the 90s references, and he brought this to the table. He's got
Never.
his head down. He's shaking his head.
Never.
But we're going to go to Judge John Franklin in a second. I'm sure he's going to come back with some 90s references of his own.
Did they say did he say where the fight would go on? I didn't listen to that part.
Where it would happen? They're saying sometime in the summer. I would assume International Fight Week's probably the favorite. But
yeah, the big lights. I think if Vegas is not a good one, how about the Brooklyn Zoo? That'd be a good one.
Oh man, we got to get to this decision here. So
what John doesn't understand, Fred and Kyle knows, I am like a super. Even though I'm so white, I was a hardcore '90s rap fan. I could do this all day. I could do this all day long.
It's so good.
East Coast for me, man. East Coast.
Yeah, so
I don't know if Davidson watched Off the Cuff live on the Loudmouth MMA YouTube channel, but Drake Riggs wanted to bring something to your attention, which it kind of happened. You were voted for some reason. I don't know how this happened. I think JHK actually gave you this. You were nominated as the sluttiest member of the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network.
All I have to say about that is I'd like to thank God, but I'd also like to thank Jesus as well. It's a tremendous honor.
He might be nominated, but there's no way Fred Kirby ain't the winner.
Yeah, that is a great point. That is a great point. So I guess we have one nominee, but Fred's just laughing right now.
Fred's got Monica in his life, a little bit of Jessica by his side.
Wow. John Franklin, let us turn it over to you mercifully so we can get the hell out of here and move on with our lives. John, who's walking away with the victory this week? Is Keith winning back-to-back, or is Davidson Baker going home with yet another victory?
Well, all I know is Fred needs all the around the way girls. Lisa, Angela, Pamela, Renee. He loves them. They're from around the way. Mike, here's what you did. You passed the mic to Keith. Keith stepped into a world. Unfortunately, Keith, I ain't mad at you. You just didn't know the ledge. You didn't have the knowledge. So from here on out, it's a hard knock life. So many tears because it's Davidson who's going to keep their heads ringing. It's Davidson on the award tour. It's Davidson who's thanking God and Jesus yet again. It's Davidson with the W and Davidson with the belt. The undisputed beatbox champion of the world, Davidson Baker.
Looking like B-Rabbit right now. Congratulations, Davidson. You know how it is. You get 30 seconds to say whatever it is you want, good, bad, and different about the sport of mixed martial arts. Let the folks know about it.
Really trying to just echo what I said earlier because of how vital the level of importance is that UFC fighters understand you guys do not want to box boxers. And this is something that is obviously, for whatever reason, and that reason being named Floyd and Conor themselves, why this conversation even comes up in the first place. I cannot wait for it to die out. And I think what John said earlier in the show is actually a very realistic possibility of how it will play out. Guys are going to sign on the dotted line and guys are going to get hurt. And unfortunately, I think that is how this is going to play out. Man, if you're a UFC fighter, please just think twice before signing on the dotted line to box a boxer.
Davidson, I have to ask where you're doing the show from, because it seems like you're in a lit up, 90s hip hop night somewhere in Detroit, Michigan. And it's like, you're the DJ, but no one's come yet. That's what it looks like right now.
Yeah, no, I'm actually just in my room where I reside with NBA TV, just about 5 feet from my face.
All right. Keith, what would you like to say? Of course, I'm not going to let you go without saying anything. You've been on fire tonight.
Well, can I kick it? That's the first question. Listen,
yes, you can.
Listen, I wasn't feeling that well today. I don't know if you guys caught that. I wasn't feeling that well. Let's just say it was an everyday struggle, but I made it pretty far. Unfortunately, John Franklin shut him down. He's a hater. MCs act like they don't know. And listen, for those who think I should have won, pour out a little liquor for me. It was simple mathematics why I didn't win. And my last thing I'll say is I got 99 problems, but John Franklin ain't one.
That girl is poison. Poison. I can do Boston. No, don't get me on the Bobby Brown train right now. I'll go off and we'll be here all night long. But
hey, Mike.
But that's it. John, would you like to say something, John?
I do. I got a couple things to say. I think that in answer to that question that I was not a part of, I think it's 100% that Gaethje and Conor are going to fight. I think the way that the UFC's been handling it, the way that, like, you know, again, this is my Chael Sonnen reference I usually make on the recap. I didn't make it this week. Chael said when everything goes silent, that's when you know a fight's done. And for a minute there, they were quiet. Now they're starting to chirp it up again a little bit, probably for negotiations. The reason why I went with Davidson is because you got to go 50% with a guy who's so random as Conor is. So I think it's 100% going to happen. And that would have been my answer had I been asked. But 50%. Now, the other thing with the boxing thing, here's the difference to me between how boxers look at MMA and how MMA fighters look at boxing. What happened the one time, like the one real time, a boxer tried to step out of the ring and into the cage? James Toney went against Randy Couture and got embarrassed quickly. So that's the boxing view of stepping into an octagon. This is what happens. Tony's until he, you know, put on weight and everything, he was a great boxer. And he went in there and got embarrassed. So those guys want nothing to do with the octagon. Conor went 10 rounds. These guys are like, hey, man, I'm a good boxer. You know, I can go 9, 8 rounds, get that kind of paycheck. So I just think that, you know, I don't think it'll ever happen because boxers are smart enough to know that, like Floyd did, if you carry an MMA fighter, then you might cash another check with him in a rematch. But I think if any one of them ever went in there just to like stake the claim for boxing and say enough of this MMA stuff, it would end forever.
I would agree. It was funny. Even the boxing analysts during the build-up to Fury Wilder were all saying that Stipe Miocic is the baddest man on the planet right now because of the MMA sort of thing, that the UFC heavyweight champion is more considered the baddest man on the planet than, you know, Mike Tyson was back in the day and Lennox Lewis back in the day and Evander Holyfield and so forth and so on. But here we are.
Can I say something to John?
We'd love that. Keith.
What he said. So John I just want to like build off what he was saying about Chael Sonnen saying when a fight, when you don't hear anything that a fight might be happening. That's what we call in the MMA industry a quiet storm. That's a deep one.
Mob deep.
Listen, this DJ, what did he say?
Warren G, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah, this DJ might disagree with John because back in the day, that's not what used to happen. But my philosophy is that they should continue to call each other out. One of them should say, "You ain't a killer." But at the end of the day, it's probably going to go down. It probably is actually going to go down on International Fight Week. You know why? Because it ain't hard to tell.
Wow. I don't know. I don't think we can get any better than that. I think we've named 475 90 songs tonight.
Listen, this kid's tried to walk off 4 times. Just give him the walk off. He's tried 4 times to do the walk off, and we keep bringing him back in.
You know, there's probably some rapper.
I have 11 more questions for you before you go.
This is going to pass off to some rapper who like hasn't heard us. They're like he's listening to the show, be like, you can't give me one song. Name one of my songs. There's just some rapper out there that's just like, come on,
he's gonna be pissed.
Give me one song.
No 90s rapper likes MMA. I'm gonna go ahead and stake that bold claim. And maybe there's
cross-pollination in those demographics.
I seen 50 Cent on the show. He was in the 90s.
50 Cent isn't 90s though. Yeah, he was more to middle
Snoop?
2000s.
Yeah, he was a broadcaster. Yeah.
Snoop was a broadcaster.
Ice-T has been at the show. He's more like 80s, but Ice-T was at the shows, a couple of shows.
Ice Cube watches MMA.
Yeah,
he's got to.
Yeah, I'll probably give you that one for sure.
Kid and Play, you know they're watching.
I'm just gonna put this into the world, but the best show that no one's doing that would be impossible to book would be Celebrity Fight Fans. I've never seen celebrities really talk about how much they love MMA before. That'd be an amazing show. You'd never book it, but it'd be a blast to like Anthony Kiedis. He's probably seen 500 fights.
Yeah, get The Rock on here. He loves that shit too. But I love this shit too, but we got to get out of here. Under an hour too. I'm very happy. So congratulations to Davidson Baker picking up another victory. Big thanks to Cole Shelton for jumping on. A big thank you to John Franklin for jumping on as well, filling in for the Vladimir Rzishka of the panel, playing Church League hockey right now. And Keith Chilton, great job as well. So for Keith, John, Davidson, and Cole, I am Mike Heck. We'll see you back here next Monday. So go back once again between the links. Enjoy the fights this weekend, everybody.
Until then, we'll be missing you.
He got it. He